Good morning, you guys. We are back again with Kickin Cancer Cares on KSLM Radio, 104.3 FM and 1220 AM. And our sponsor for the second half is Venti's. So their food, I know that they're really a healthy place to eat, but I cannot get over their truffle tots. So they normally do truffle fries.
Okay.
But if you make it a truffle tot, you have to pay like $1 extra or whatever.
Okay.
But oh my gosh. And then you get the red pepper aioli that I've been stuck on.
Yeah.
I think I've had that, more times than I'd like to admit, actually. But it is so good. All of the things that they add on, all of those extra little spices and seasonings and the specialty sauces like the red pepper aioli
Yep.
is amazing. And their Buddha burger, I just can't get enough of. Obviously.
Funny story for you on the Buddha burger.
Yeah.
You and I are both wearing our bright pink Kickin Cancer shirts.
Yes.
We do have hats and beanies and lots of the other apparel. I think it was a week ago. I was downtown Salem, and this female is walking towards me with a bright pink beanie on. Mm-hmm. And as she got closer, I realized it was one of our beanies.
Oh, you're like, hey.
Kickin Cancer on the front.
Yeah.
And she was a little darker skin, darker hair, so the pink really popped off.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, that's a really cool beanie. Where'd you get it? She says, well, I was at this thrift store, and I saw it, and I thought it looked cool.
Yeah.
So we started this wonderful conversation with this new person. I never met him before. And I'm like, well, I'm the guy with Kickin Cancer, blah, blah, blah.
Me.
And so I pulled up my phone to show her our podcast.
Yeah.
She's new to town. And she goes, and I showed her I showed her the short of us actually at Vente's.
Yeah.
She goes, that looks really good. Well, we were a block away.
Oh.
So I said, well, come with me. So I bought her lunch. She's new to town. She's shopping at a thrift store.
Yeah.
Right? Well, let me buy you lunch. So I went in there. She said, well, I want to get that burger. So she got your Buddha burger.
Yes.
And then I got some mac and cheese.
Yep.
And we decided to share it, right? And she's like, this is the best mac and cheese ever. Well, then Dino walks over, and I said, Dino, I want you to meet somebody. And I said, we are here because she saw that clip.
That's awesome.
So and I'm just telling people, like Armando says, Armando's not a vegan.
No.
And that's some of the best food. I would not know it was vegan if he hadn't told me.
Because it's real food.
It's real food.
It's real food. Simple as that. So, of course, it's amazing.
Yeah. Well, there was there was two pieces to that Foundation for Kickin Cancer. Mm-hmm. One was the support side.
Yes.
And it was just really interesting to watch how that one more began to develop. Mm-hmm. And every time I thought, well, we've run out of one more, there's always lots
There's
more.
always one more.
Then God would just literally put one more in my my lab. Like, here's someone you should probably help.
Yeah.
And we were probably maybe about 1.5 years or 2 years in as an organization. There was our second president of the board. His name was Laura McSweeney. And she said, this is not a really good process because Barron feels bad is not a very good process.
Mm-hmm. That's fair.
She says, we're starting to grow. And there needs to be some legitimate process for people being nominated.
Yeah.
I get requests weekly now.
Oh, I bet.
I got one from New Jersey.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like emailing them. We don't have a chapter in New Jersey.
We don't reach that far, yeah.
But they're fine us in New Jersey.
Absolutely, yeah.
So we put a process in place to make it a little more legitimate how you get requests come in. But the other piece that we thought was just so valuable was the education side.
Mm-hmm. And that can reach everywhere.
Well, that has reached 44 foreign nations now.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And there was a phrase that we used to do in those early. I want to go back to that very first few podcasts, right? I would always bring you some shocking information.
You did. And I loved it because I was always genuinely shocked.
Well, how about I genuinely shock you again?
Okay, here we go.
The year I started Kickin Cancer was 2018. Mm-hmm. And I thought, just for the heck of it, if I could find the prediction for 2025, which is out now.
Okay.
So I know what they are predicting for new cases for this year. The prediction for 2025 is 2,041,910 new cases of cancer.
Wow.
Yeah. And last year was 2,100,140. So this is 2 years in a row past 2 million new cases.
Why?
So here's where it gets really scary on the shocking spot. I went back to the first year, 2018. Mm-hmm. Year 1 was 1.7. Year 2 was 1.7. Year 3 was 1.8.
What year was year 3?
2020.
Okay.
2020 was year 3. Year 4 was 1.8. Year 5, 2022, was 1.9. Year 6, 2023, was 1.9 again. Last year was just past 2 million. So if I'm not going to count this year, just the years that I have been doing this.
Wow.
12,941,406 Americans have gotten cancer.
That is completely unacceptable.
And more than once, you've talked about big numbers.
Yeah.
So to break that really big number down, there are just shy of 8 million people in the state of Washington.
Wow.
And there are just over 4 million people in the state of Oregon. So over the last 7 years, the entire state of Oregon and the entire state of Washington, that's how many people have gotten cancer.
That's insane.
Since I started doing this.
But what's crazy is why are we at such a high tick with new cases? And I don't want... Could a vaccine have something to do with that?
Well, the...
why is it going up so much? Right.
What I do know, and again, we can do a whole other show about this, but if you go back to the 60s, it was about 600,000 in a year. That was 1 year was 600,000.
Yeah.
It was the early 70s when we just passed the first million.
Okay.
Okay. That's when President Nixon started the National Cancer Institute to try to slow this thing down.
Yeah.
He started the quote-unquote war on cancer 54 years ago. Okay. Except it hasn't slowed down. It's gotten progressively worse. And what has dramatically changed since the 70s to now, the food that I grew up eating is not the same food. It's the same label. It's not the same food that your daughters...
I had this talk with my youngest last night. Do you remember the ice cream, the Dippin' Dots?
Yes, the Dippin' Dots.
I was like, those that you guys have now are nothing compared to how it was when they first came out when I was a child.
Yeah.
The food is tremendously different.
It is.
So there are lots of contributing factors. We don't want to get sanctioned on YouTube.
Right, sorry.
But the food system hasn't changed, and it progressively. This is what I find even more interesting with these numbers is if I look at the number of people that have passed away, 2019, 609,000. 2019, 606,000. 220, 606,000. 221, 608,000. 2022, 609,000. 2023, 609,000. 2024, 611,000. That number has stayed consistent over the last 7 years, except the new cases continues to go like this. We're not slowing this thing down.
This whole conversation just could open a can of
It
worms.
could. It could. And
You know.
I need to tread lightly, but it's like they like to keep us sick so that they can make money. And so they keep us sick.
We are the sickest nation in the world right now.
100%.
Look at other countries and how they eat and their health.
Yeah, we are the most malnourished and obese country as well. And it's like, make sense.
Right. Well, I'm going to break these big numbers
Sorry,
down.
you're making me
now
mad.
I'm pissing you off.
Making me mad.
It's a can of worms, and there's lots of directions I would like to go, but I really do want this entire show to go to YouTube. So
we've already had to cut snippets
we have
we brought up this
yes. But I do want to break down this year's number a little deeper for you because this is also an interesting number. 2,041,910 Americans are expected to get cancer this year.
Okay.
That is 5,060 per day, which is 233 per hour, which is 4 Americans per minute will be diagnosed.
Wow.
This year's expected mortality, people are going to die. 618,000. 618,000, the highest number in the last 8 years. That's 1,070 a day. That's 70 an hour. And if we pause, which is not good for radio, if we pause for 1 minute, one more American just died from cancer. 1 American per minute will pass from cancer this year alone.
That's heartbreaking.
That's very heartbreaking. Unfortunately, based upon the numbers, more men than women this year. They're expecting just over 1 million men, just under 1 million women.
Okay.
So we're not slowing this thing down at all.
No.
And though I thought it was very important to continue to support somebody, I also realized that if we're ever going to slow this thing down, we have to have an education program.
Yes. Yes, you do.
Awareness.
Yeah.
So here's something interesting that happened that first year, and I'm going to get off my soapbox tirade before I get censored by YouTube.
I know. Well, we're already being censored.
Yeah.
'Cause we're treading lightly.
We are treading lightly. And there are a lot of things that I believe are happening currently within the political environment that I hope will make some changes.
Oh, I pray.
We can only pray. But that first year, Brenda was going to fly up from Arizona. No one had met her yet. And a couple people said, well, we would love to sit and visit with Brenda. So I thought, well, why don't I put together some kind of a little tiny workshop?
Yeah.
And I reached out to a friend of mine. He is a certified project manager, and he loved the idea. In fact, it turns out he was battling cancer himself. Didn't tell me that originally.
Okay.
And he says, I'm not going to do the work for you, but I will guide you through the process of how to put together a workshop.
Perfect.
Cool.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know what I was doing either.
Right.
But we found a venue, and we went to the Kroc Center. And I just wanted one of those little tiny rooms. Well, back then, the guy who ran the Kroc was Captain Dan. And he loved the idea because his mom had cancer. And he says, I'm going to give you the main chapel. It'll hold 300 people.
Oh, wow.
It has sound because it's a church room.
Yeah.
And it's got video. Like, we got the best room for no cost. He gave it to us, right? And we got flyers out, and we got the word out to people. And this lady says, oh, I'd love to videotape it. So she came down with some really professional cameras to videotape the whole thing. And Mike Goss, my friend, shows up. First time he met Brenda was there at that event because he was going to speak and Brenda was going to speak. Those were our two speakers at that first workshop. And I think that he knew that I had in my head a vision of that whole room being full. And he was trying to help me not be disappointed.
Yeah.
So he said, if 20 show up or 200 show up, we give the exact same message.
Absolutely.
And we had about 20 show up, right? But that was our first workshop. It was May of 2018. And I thought, well, okay, so if only 20 are going to show up, then let's find a venue that'll hold about 25 or 30.
Yeah.
And I went to Casey McAllister and Dr. Isaacson. And those were the two speakers in our second workshop.
Okay.
And we just kept doing workshops in a small scale like that.
Yeah.
The biggest one we'd gotten to was January of 20, right before COVID hit, January of 20. We had a pretty good sized room. We had 70 people in the room.
That is a big size.
Right? And we had down a little hallway. We had some little vendors in this hallway so they could talk to people as they visited. We had a wonderful lineup of speakers at that one. And our keynote at that was Casey McAllister again.
Okay.
Except I knew Casey had done this before, so I wanted him to do it one more time. The room we were in had a really tall roof. And I'm really encouraging listeners to go to YouTube because I want to make sure Ashley puts this picture on YouTube.
Okay.
Really tall roof. And again, Casey's business is called Rise Up with Casey.
Yeah.
So what he does, he takes this ladder that you would use to change the lights in a really tall roof. And one rung at a time, he climbs the top of this ladder. And from the 20-foot ladder,
Whoa.
this guy with no legs is looking back down at the crowd, basically saying, whatever's going on in your world, you can rise up past it.
Yes.
It was visually impactful.
Oh, I can only imagine.
You know, I mean, I think
because I've met Casey.
Because you met
Yes.
Casey, right?
Yes.
And for those that haven't met Casey, he is just a lot of fun. He pokes fun at himself all the time with his situation. You know, one fun story for you: when we're doing the Spartan race, it's towards the end of the 13-mile run, so it's the biggest run they have. And there's this obstacle where you have to get up on these like a ladder, but they're separated. You got to climb up and over it. So Casey gets help to get the first one, and he's got some camera crew with him because people like to do him on YouTube.
Yeah.
So he gets to the top. He looks back at his camera and goes, "Guys, I am so tired. I can't feel my legs anymore."
Such a Casey thing.
Such a Casey saying. But we had a support thing that was starting to go someplace. We had an education thing that was starting to go someplace. We'd just finished our first official year of 2019. I didn't have to take a loan out. We finished we actually like $1,000 still left in the bank at the end of the first year. And then COVID hit. And not just us, but all the nonprofits were struggling.
Yeah.
If your nonprofit is Liberty House, where you're there to support the kids who are going through abuse, and you can't get together because COVID rules, right? Well, everything we did required some level of fundraising,
Right.
some level of support. And if we're going to educate in a classroom situation, we couldn't do it.
All gathering things.
All gathering things that couldn't occur during COVID. And I had just a few things that were off the ground, like a website and print people and an insurance bill.
Yeah.
And I just like, this is going someplace. I can't stop yet.
No.
So there was always a bag of cans in my car. I was always recycling cans to pay those basic bills. And we managed to get through COVID. And then we got the ball rolling again, right? I had met Robin, and the whole Pathways idea had put on hold until we could get through COVID.
Yeah.
But now we sit, 21 still kind of semi-COVID. So 22, 23, 24, 3 full years past COVID. And we've written a check for $15,000 to one person.
That's so awesome.
We wrote a check to Lay for almost $26,000.
That's amazing.
And we just continue to find new ways to educate, new ways to pivot with our education program. Well, then I get a call from a friend who wants me to meet another friend to another friend. Multiple referrals of friends. And this lady I was talking to said, you need to come to Vancouver, Washington with me and meet this water lady.
Crazy water lady.
Crazy water lady. Okay, fine. So I drove all the way to Vancouver with the person that I had met through a referral. I'm sitting in an office, and this person walks past the office. I said the cancer word, and she pokes her head back and says, what's going on?
Cancer?
And that's how I met Mickey Meisner.
I love that.
Love you, Mickey.
Yes, she's amazing. You guys are literally, you guys have met your matches.
I'm not sure who's crazier.
Right, exactly. She's the perfect person for the second chapter. I'm so glad that your guys' paths crossed.
Yeah. And so when I told her what we were doing, well, she wanted to take the education direction first.
Yeah.
So we worked together. She did 99% of the work to organize a workshop in her water store.
Yeah.
Right. And we just had a couple of great speakers. So she took the exact same concept that I did, except she did it up in Vancouver. And once I realized we truly are duplicating this whole process, well, then I went back to the board and I said, now we got to make some legal changes. We got to make some changes to our bylaws. We got to protect the organization. I didn't start this to be a business person.
No,
right?
no.
But we did, and we figured out how do we protect the brand, Kickin Cancer, and duplicate the message.
Yeah.
And then Mickey was kind of a pilot for us to figure out what's right, what's wrong, what to fix.
Yeah.
That all happened last year. Mickey did a phenomenal job for us in 2024 of figuring out what needed fixed to then move forward.
Yeah.
We are now in full-blown conversations with Cindy Miracle in Bend, Oregon.
That's so awesome.
And she wants to do a workshop.
Yeah.
The exact same thing Mickey did, except now we've got all the rough edges taken off.
Right, so it's more of a polished machine.
It's a whole lot easier process,
yes.
Right? And so Cheryl from our board and I will go over to Bend, we'll sit down with Cindy, we'll figure out a venue, we'll figure out some speakers, and then she can then begin doing her own education process.
That's so cool.
So we're in the... I feel confident that before the second quarter is done, we'll have our third chapter.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
And that's how you help one more.
Yeah.
You get other people doing it in their areas.
Yeah.
And Mickey had done the education piece wonderfully. But then she's like, oh my gosh, I've got this person that comes into my water store all the time, and he's got stage 5 colon cancer. I didn't know it was stage 5.
I didn't either. Yeah.
But what did she say at the honor meeting? He's cancer-free.
Yeah, completely cancer-free.
And
amazing, a miracle.
Yeah. And what was so cool about that situation is, once again, I didn't know Robert. We did a phone call where Robert and her are on the phone, like, this is what a Go team is. This is how it works. Great. She's good with that. They did this whole concert for him. And this is, I've said this more than once to our board. We have... If you submit an application to be a Go team, there's only 2 questions. What's the need? And do you have a support to help us help you?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because they're not going to work if your circle wasn't involved.
Right. You have to have a support system in place.
There's no question about your religion or your race or your age or your gender
Nothing.
or your sexual preference.
Yeah.
We don't care.
Yeah.
Because guess who else doesn't care?
Cancer.
Cancer didn't care.
Cancer does not care, does not discriminate. It does it.
And Mickey said that concert for Robert was so funny because there was just like 30 gay guys all having a good time.
That's awesome.
I don't care Robert's gay.
Yeah, me neither.
Neither did Cancer.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Our last Go team this year was, to look at her, you wouldn't realize it. To look at her kids, you would. But she was African American. Mm-hmm. And by the time we got involved, she had weeks to live.
Yeah.
And she didn't make it. She didn't make it to the other evening.
No.
But it doesn't care what your religion is, your race, your gender. It doesn't care.
Yeah.
And we don't care either. Mm-hmm. You know, we just want to be there to support you. So an interesting timeline item for you in this whole process. It is now July 14th, 2022.
Okay.
In the timeline.
Yeah.
And it was early July of 2022 that you were getting emails, people telling us this show is not long enough.
Correct. Yes. Yep.
So I had to go find another sponsor.
You did. And
we did our very first full hour show on July the 14th, and Victoria Sheen was our first guest.
Yes. And I was so happy when we moved to an hour because we had so much more to talk about. We had so much more to share. There was just everything that we bring is valuable. So I'm so glad we moved to an hour. Although it was scary.
It was scary.
It was scary.
It was, I mean, it
was the right move.
It was the right move. You know, and again, you know, if you're listening and you'd like to help monetarily sponsor what's going on, please reach out.
Yeah.
And you definitely join the movement.
Yes.
Definitely the movement. You know, I mean, a lot of the cost to sponsor this show, you're buying radio ads. You're buying radio ads with KSLM, and that radio ad sponsorship is how we pay for Amanda to do her work, to do all the editing. This is fun, but it's not free.
Right.
And we do need monetary sponsors. There is an amazing business. I really don't want to give a big shout out now, because if I don't, our producer was going to remind me to. But we had been doing YouTube long enough. There's a business in Albany that has followed us for quite some time. And the first year, because they saw what we were doing with Ozzy, they sent me a $10,000 check.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
2 years ago, they made a $30,000 donation online.
Wow.
Last year, I just said, thank you for all you've done to help us.
Yeah.
This is our plans for more chapters and and our YouTube. They sent us a $100,000 check.
Wow.
And that is a chunk of that is paying for the growth of the chapters.
Yeah.
And a chunk of that is sponsoring this YouTube channel.
That's amazing.
Because guess what? Ashley's awesome.
Amazing.
But it's not free.
No.
Nothing's free. We would love to do this for free all the day long.
Yeah.
But she works her tail off. And so Elijah Streams in Albany, Oregon is sponsoring our YouTube channel.
Okay. Thank you guys so much. That's awesome.
And if you hear us and you want to help this go too, just keep your name gets attached to a movement, right? And I've said this a lot to different celebrities. You know, let's take Tom Brady. You know, you've done a lot of things in your life. What are you going to do the rest of your life? Wouldn't you love it if you've got the money to do it, and your legacy is with the money you have, is you helped fund a movement to get rid of cancer?
Yes. That's pretty powerful.
Yeah. There are people who make money that are philanthropists. And if you would like to help us get this movement out there, monetarily help us, we will thank you day and night.
Yes.
Speaking of thank you, Ventes, we thank him tons.
Yes, we do. He is amazing. He is our newest sponsor. So Ventes, they are downtown Salem.
Yeah.
And I'm not really a soup person, and I do not like the beer cheese sauces and whatnot, but they have this amazing beer cheese soup. And it is phenomenal. I couldn't believe it when I tried my sister's. I was like, you're going to have to go get another one because this one's now mine.
I think I'm going to have to get that with the truffle fries.
Yes. Oh, dipping. I didn't even think of dipping it.
You know
oh
what?
My gosh, yum.
With soups, one of the things that I love to do on a cold day is just take a can of Campbell's tomato soup with some grilled cheese. But if you get their tomato soup
yeah.
with a grilled cheese sandwich, that just nothing compared to Campbell.
That's
Their
one of my
tomato soup is so amazing.
It is. That's one of my sister's staples. Is their tomato soup and grilled cheese.
Because it's got chunks of tomato and it's got some basil inside of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just tomato soup.
No, and they use real ingredients in their kitchen too. So it's nothing's canned or, processed and all that. They use phenomenal, amazing, real ingredients, just like Oddmo's. So I love that both of our food sponsors have amazing, healthy options and are looking out for our best interest, while also offering comfort food as well.
Right.
So thank you to both of you guys. So huge shout out to
Mike.
Venti's and Dino and Mike from Oddmo's.
Definitely.
Yes, and we'll back. Thank you for sharing everything about how Kickin Cancer got started and stuff as well.
It's so funny to look back on it.
Yeah.
And just think back on the progression.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is not what I thought I was going to be doing 7 years ago.
No.
But apparently God had a different plan for me, that's for sure.
Yes, he did. And we'll be back next week
as the movement continues.